recording. Okay.
We are ready to start. Let's start with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
What happened?
I'm not sure what happened.
I'm not sure what happened
There was a wave of amnesia. Okay. Hopefully that is not a sign for the rest of the meeting. I apologize to the public listening in. We're going to move on to the approval of the minutes of the regular board meeting from February 9th of 2026.
I move to approve.
Second.
All right, properly moved and seconded. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? No, motion passes. Moving on to the monthly transactions, the approval of general fund vouchers 83068 through 83152, avoiding 82916, and wire transfers 2026-0303 through 2026-0345.
I move to approve the general fund vouchers and wire transfers as read.
Second.
All right, properly moved and seconded. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Nope. Motion passes. Well, there is no public, so we have no public comments. Moving on to approval of resignations and retirements, and we have a few of those.
Yeah, we've got a couple here. So first one you see Melanie Ellison, elementary special ed teacher, and she'll be certainly with us the rest of the year, but not coming back next year. She has family plans that are taking her to another part of the state, so she let us know about that recently and submitted her letter. So we'll be posting that as soon as we can. And then we have a couple of coaches. Christy Niles is giving up the cross-country head coaching position. She started the program and has led it very well for all the years that it's been around, but her daughter plays volleyball and she really wants to be able to follow her closely here as the season goes next year, as her daughter will be a junior. And then Kirsten Hughes has been the assistant for cross-country, and as I noted there, they're kind of a package deal, and so she's stepping away as well. So we'll be working on replacements for the cross-country coaches. Then we've also got Wendy Johnson, who has been, for the whole year, filling in as a long-term sub in the elementary at the food service department, and she's feeling like she's wanting to kind of step away from being there all the time. So we'll be posting, kind of combining a couple of food service jobs that we've talked about before and posting that very soon, probably tomorrow. So.
Okay. Do I have an approval or motion to approve the resignations and retirements?
I make a motion to approve resignations.
Second.
All right, properly moved and seconded. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Nope. Motion passes. Moving on to a little more exciting, the approval of hires.
Yeah, these are always better. You recall last month when we had our coaches for spring coach roster, we still had a couple of openings. So softball assistant coach Emily Kreck, some of you might know her as Emily Russler, has agreed to be the assistant coach for softball, and she's one of our paras at the elementary school as well. And then the fourth coach, the second assistant coach for track remains unfilled. Mr. Rosine, our athletic director, has talked with the track coaches multiple times and haven't really had any applicants, qualified applicants or applicants at all really. And so the three coaches are good to go with 3 this year. Number one, their numbers in track are down a little bit, but also they've had multiple volunteers helping them out with specialized events the last few years. So they feel like they're comfortable moving ahead with what they have rather than hiring someone who really is going to kind of be out of their element. They're better off with the 3 and the volunteers. So that's their plan going forward, with the idea that they'll continue looking ahead for next year. So, and then the other part, so these are all co-curricular positions. Drama club advisor. So as we know, we revived our drama program after a number of years off, since COVID really. So Jeanette Schott has worked with the community theater for the last few years, directing a number of their plays with a lot of success. And we met over a year ago and talked about the possibilities of her helping to get our drama program launched again here, and she agreed to do that. So we agreed in principle to have her be the the advisor really about a year ago. And then we've also got a couple of young teachers here, Molly Skolecki and Josiah Vitalis, who have some background in theater. And, them being second-year teachers, reluctant to lead it, but we're hoping to assist and have a little bit of mentoring going on. So I guess what I'd like to propose is to give, the full that 1122 number is the full contract for Jeanette. And then I'd like to propose if the board would approve taking a second contract, splitting it in two for Mr. Vitalis and Ms. Skolecki, and having, giving them at least a small stipend for their efforts helping out this year. And again, I think, the plan would be for one or both of them to sort of grow into that head advisor role in the future. So.
Good. Comment? I move to approve the hires mentioned.
A second.
All right, properly moved and seconded. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All right, opposed? Nope. Approval of the hires approved. Moving on to future financial planning, forecasting with Baird Financial.
Okay, so I'll transition here. I'll get us hooked up to the big screen here in a second. But we've got Elise Mern from Baird Financial who's going to join us and give a little presentation. This is going to build on some of the things that we talked about last month when we kind of talked about the other aspects of future planning. So just bear with me for a second here, and I'll get us transitioned over. Elise, try not to get dizzy while I'm moving you around here. That's right. Just want to make sure that the sound.
Testing.
There you go. Yep. Oh yeah. Good. Very good. You're up on the big screen with the sound as well as the visuals. So can everybody see okay from this angle?
Yep.
Good. Yeah. At least you got a decent view of us. I know it's obviously a little different, but
Yes.
okay.
Yes.
All right. We'll turn it over to you then.
Perfect. Thank you, everyone, for accommodating me virtually. Good to see you all. Are you getting 70-degree weather in Clear Lake as well?
No.
Not quite that high.
50.
Feels like 70 up to. I haven't been outside all afternoon.
That's nice.
It's way better than it was.
50s.
We're ready for some more snow now.
50s maybe.
Right. We've done this. We know that this is not the time. This is the cool spring, but we have 70 degrees today, so make sure to get out some steps. I'm in Milwaukee, so we got that little bit extra 10 degrees or so. But yeah, good to see you all. Thank you guys for having me. I am a member of the Baird School Business Solutions team. I have been with Baird for 10 years, and our School Business Solutions team is on the bottom half of the slide here. We all work in school business offices, and we work primarily on the operational side of school district budgets. So thinking things like staffing and health insurance and business insurance and all that good stuff. Whereas the teammates up on top here, our banking teammates, they're going to be the ones more focused on capital planning and debt issuance. So I'm speaking tonight from the lens of kind of the operational budget and where things look in the next kind of 1 to 5 years. So just kind of keep that in mind. My lens is usually going to be focused on the operational side of things. Our team helps school districts try to interpret the complexity of the school finance, puzzle, right? So the revenue limit, seed liability, those are all things that our team is well versed in. We talk about every single day, and we have a number of products and tools to try to make it as easy as possible to understand. We're talking about this stuff with our public and our community members, because we all know once I start talking about tertiary aid, most people are like, all right, that's, the ears turn off. And so to kind of make it as understandable as possible. And specifically, I am Clear Lake's teammate. So I've been working with Clear Lake for almost 7 years behind the scenes. I worked with Josh years ago, and I've had the honor of working with Chris. So I know Clear Lake's history as well. One of the benefits of having a teammate assigned to you over many number of years. So I believe you all may have seen this visual. I shared this with Chris, a couple months ago, and I just said, when school districts approach our team and they say, we want to know when we might need to go to referendum and for what kind of referendum, our team always starts with this wheel to kind of reground everyone in the fact that the timing and the amount may change based on a change in any single one of these buckets. Some of these buckets are within the board's control, such as staffing, one-time revenues or expenditures, and occasionally levy management as well. Fund balance is another big one, actually, that we'll talk about quite a bit tonight. The others are certainly not within the board's control or anyone's, right? As we're moving from one year to the next, really looking to kind of see what is the next best and greatest variable that we have to kind of change the forecast. So part of my goal this evening is to help show the tool that Clear Lake has been utilizing for many years, and to share a preliminary forecast and then just demonstrate how some of these bigger picture items, and I'm going to talk most notably about enrollment, fund balance, and the biennial budget, just to demonstrate how a change in any one of these is likely going to impact when the district may consider going to referendum. So with that kind of roadmap for the next half hour or so, I just wanted to also kind of help you all know before we look at the forecast, what all went into it, what does our team do in order to get this 5-year projection. So first and foremost, as I mentioned, I've been lucky enough to work with Clear Lake for the last almost 10 years. The district has used the budget model since 2017, so thank you for putting your trust in our team. The historical data in the forecast model, we reconcile against the Department of Public Instruction. So we make sure all the data is correct. The fund balance data, the mill rate data, all of that is part of our annual review. And then for the current year, because the DPI releases data at various points throughout the year, what my team does is we review the district's budget and we verify that the figures that can be correct are correct, and then we highlight or review, provide deeper analysis for areas that look, either out of line with historical years or other. So we are very actively involved in the budget review process for the current year, and then we work alongside the budget to cast forward a handful of assumptions. So the assumptions that you'll see in the model tonight are just, 10,000-foot view assumptions that Chris, Eve, and myself all kind of were working on together. And those are primarily going to be, we're going to assume there's declining enrollment continuing in the district, 2.63% increase to salaries. Now this is the WERC collective bargaining rate that was certified. This is certainly up to the board. The board decides up to which rate you're going to be providing salary increases. So this can absolutely be something that changes yet. 5% increase in health insurance. It's one of the lower ones that I've seen with districts across the state. And Chris and I are crossing fingers and hoping that insurance continues to come in good for Clear Lake like it has. And then some small, not so small, double-digit increases to workers' comp, property, and liability insurance. Those are smaller line items on the budget, so they won't have as big of an impact, but they are accounted for in the budget already. So those are kind of our preliminary assumptions going into the forecast model. And then, as I mentioned, changes to any of these will result in a different outcome. So I had identified a few ideas with Chris to really show how any one of these things can impact when Clear Lake might consider going to referendum. And because we're here, we have this, the ability to run scenarios in the model. Anything that you all might want to see as well, we can run through the tool on the go since I'm here. So with that, we'll dive in. We'll do a great unveiling of the preliminary forecast for 26, 27, and beyond. Okay, so I guess just quick show of hands, how many of you have seen this visual from the forecast model in the past? This exact.
I don't think so.
Oh, okay, shaking the heads. All right, so this is great. I can help ground us. Like, what am I looking at here? We have a lot of numbers. So this is kind of the result of the handful of assumptions that I mentioned. So this row 6 here is showing what's happening to our membership. Okay, so you'll notice that from one year to the next, there's declining enrollment in the forecast, okay? Big drop off in 27, 28, and again in 2030, 31. This is in alignment with some of the larger class sizes that Clear Lake is graduating off. And we're assuming that those classes are being replaced with smaller class sizes, so 25 is our estimate. So here's where you're going to see that declining enrollment. This next one is that, at a sticky 325 per pupil for the next 397 years that you may have heard about from the governor. Okay, so that is currently in law, and that is, so that's kind of what this line is meant to represent. The next 3 are really the operational budget. Okay, so our revenues in Fund 10, expenditures, and then the estimated surplus deficit as a result. So our revenues minus expenditures. And then the estimated fund balance. So in any year that you see a deficit budget, the fund balance is going to absorb the deficit, right? So this is assuming that the fund balance is basically, or the district is going to draw on fund balance in order to kind of sustain these deficit budgets in future years, okay? So you might imagine what happens fund balance percentage over time if you continue to utilize surplus or net deficit budgets, draw on fund balance over a period that is going to go down. And then the next are really more related to the impact on taxes. So you can see a line for the total school-based tax levy, which is then distributed amongst your tax base. We use the mill rate in order to try to estimate, a rough tax on a $100,000 home. And then these next couple of lines are the, if the district were to go to referendum, those would be slotted in here in the years that they would be theoretically approved. So I know that this output is not the most friendly, but it has a lot of really good information. Sometimes I even just hide everything and show these 5 lines to really get down to what we're focused on, which is typically the surplus deficit and the fund balance.
Can we get a screenshot of that or anything like that?
Absolutely. Yep. So this will be before we run through any of the scenarios. And then this has these handful of assumptions. So at this moment in time, these are the figures that are kind of driving the forecast. So we'll kind of take a snapshot and then talk through some of these other things that could improve the forecast or can make it worse.
So, am I reading this right? We're slated to lose about 57 students over the next 4 years, 5 years, and that means we will have about $500,000 less in funds when we get to 2030. Is that right? Am I reading that right? Is that what that red number means?
I think that's the declining enrollment, the salary increases, health insurance, all those scenarios.
That'll be the impact. We'll be $500,000 behind.
Correct.
Okay.
Yep. That's it. So that's kind of the deficit by year 5. If we don't make any changes whatsoever to any of these pieces, like we just mentioned, the revenue you'll notice from 25, 26 to 20, 30, 31, it goes up by about $200,000. But if you think about spreading $200,000 over 5 years, that's not, what's that going to do unless we're reducing expenses?
Right.
Yeah, because we're multiplying
So-
that $325 increase by fewer and fewer kids every year.
It is interesting, you lose that many students and our expenditures still keep going up. Which means there's fixed cost besides just the pupil
Mhm.
price.
Right.
That somebody's
Fixed
not.
costs and probably cost items are going up too. So.
Yeah,
Well, the inefficiency of having classrooms that aren't full too, you know.
Right, our salary, which is our biggest portion, is staying the same. That's, or going up actually a little bit.
And so even thinking about potentially reducing staff, which is the largest cost, as Chris, Eve, and I were looking at class sizes, Clear Lake's in such the head count is in such a unique spot. It's at like, in some class 37, 41. You can't really have one class of 37, right? So you have to keep 2 sections. For a lot, especially the younger grades, because Clear Lake is an AGR school. So there's funding tied to those little class sizes. But say even in 6th grade, you have to keep 2 sections. So even though you're losing, as you mentioned, 50 kids over 5 years, that's all across all grade levels and not in a way where we could reduce a staff member or 2, which on average is about $80,000, $90,000 with salaries and benefits. So, as I mentioned, these are kind of the assumptions that are driving, I just realized the spelling error here, insurance. Driving the forecast here. So, Chris and I thought it'd be helpful to kind of walk through a handful of scenarios that demonstrate or change kind of what this might look like. Okay, so we have, as I mentioned, we've dropped off those larger graduating classes and we're assuming that they're going to be replaced with smaller class sizes. If that does not happen, if they're replaced with 30 or 40 kids at the kindergarten level, and we don't lose 50 kids over 5 years, say instead it's something a little bit more stable, so a loss of maybe 5 kids, so 5 times 5, 25 over the 5-year period. What does that do? Okay, before I actually do that, one of the things about the model is that you can run scenarios. So what we do is we can copy this current scenario to base, and this basically locks in the scenario that we just talked through, okay? So all the pieces driving the forecast right now, so 326 base scenario. Then we can go back to our enrollment and make that so that we're only losing 25 kids over this 5-year period of time. And these are scenarios that actually Chris and Eve, kind of run when they get the budget model before we do all of the adjustments too, just to see the impact on the district's forecast. Okay, so with a loss of 25 students instead of 50 over a 5-year period, you'll notice this far right number is significantly different than it was in our initial forecast. Okay, so enrollment is not something that's set in stone. It's something that you come to learn in September, right, when kids actually walk in the door. But based on the data that we have, larger class sizes graduating, smaller class sizes coming in, we can be conservative with our enrollment estimates and say, all right, well, what if it did come to pass this way? This is how things would look. Okay? So I'm just going to take those back out. I'll go back to that more, I guess, conservative enrollment estimate. And then the next one we're going to take a look at is special education funding. Now, I'm not sure how much you all are reading the news lately, but there's some, magical budget repair bill that I'm crossing my fingers to see. And we're, refreshing the news every chance we get. So right now, there's talk of using the state's budget surplus in order to fully fund special education funding. Now, when I say fully fund, I mean basically follow the law. Okay, so a 42% reimbursement of special education costs in 25-26, and a 45% reimbursement of special education costs in 26-27. Okay, so as it stands right now, the estimate for 26-27 is conservative. We are assuming that costs get reimbursed only at a rate of 42%. So if we change that from 42% to 45, it results in approximately $40,000 additional dollars for Clear Lake in 26-27. So that's something that could change tomorrow. It could change in 2 weeks. It's kind of all the timing of when this budget repair bill comes through. So stay tuned on that. But something that Chris and Eve actually just applied for on March 2nd, high-cost special education aid funding. It was not something that they had budgeted for. It was something that they are eligible for, or Clear Lake is eligible for, but it's based on how much the rest of the state spends. Okay, so anecdotally, I can tell you that's another $20,000 that this number would come down. Okay, so Chris, do you know when we learn? Is that June? We know when the high costs funding comes out in June. I think that's when it comes out.
We just talked with Rick about that. I can't remember what he said when for sure it will be. I think it might be because they have to see what, it's a sum certain, so it depends on how many submissions they get. There's only so many dollars to divide between all the districts, so the more submissions, the more they apply, the less there is a little bit. So he said that it was reimbursed like 17 point something % last year. He's hoping with the additional money put into it, it'll be closer to maybe 20%. But he said there's been more expenses too this year.
Okay. And I think 20 was conservative because we were eligible for more, but we were lowballing that number on the 20,000.
Yeah. He kind of used the same reimbursement rate as last year, like the 17.8% or whatever it was.
Okay, so that's another piece that could improve the forecast. Another that will not improve the forecast, but I feel like I have to demonstrate to kind of show the big picture. So I mentioned this 325 for the next 400 or so years, right? These colored cells up top here represent the passing of a new biennial budget. So in 27-28, there will be a new governor in place responsible for putting this new biennial budget. And there's discussion that this 325 per pupil might get repealed. Okay, so it's stood up in the Supreme Court as so long as Evers has been governor, but there's been discussion of this going away whether it's a Democratic or Republican governor, because it's caused such consternation with property taxes, or at least that's the impression. So if that goes away in 27, 28, you can imagine then that essentially eliminates, even if you have declining enrollment, that's $325 per pupil that the district would no longer be receiving. Okay, so if the $325 per pupil goes away in 27, 28, that certainly, almost doubles the net, impact of the surplus deficit in the 5th year. Now, this has not happened yet. This is 2 years down the road. However, I've seen more districts modeling this for their boards to show if this were to happen, what would our plan be? When would we plan to address, our operating needs? So, because it hasn't happened yet, I see more districts kind of, using the $325 per pupil as their baseline, and kind of running scenarios from here until we know more. What will that be? The primaries this August, and the governor's election is this fall. So we'll know who'll be in the chair. But even if they say they're going to do one thing, there's no guarantee that they'll do it once the biennial budget comes to pass.
And also, for the board, if that 325 goes away, that's a worst case scenario to have zeros. Then it's also, very likely that in the next biennium they might put a different number in there that's less than 325 or so on.
Or they could come up with a whole different program.
Right. It's doubtful that it would be zero forever, but you just never know. So we would look at worst case scenarios.
Yeah. Right. Just looking back historically, these 2 years, this was during COVID. So there are those one-time COVID revenues that districts relied on to balance their budgets in those years. But that means that there was no base building revenue over this period of time. Districts lost out on the ability to, build that revenue limit authority. Okay, so I put the 325 back, but we all kind of saw the impact on the surplus deficit. And then the final one that I just wanted to demonstrate was if the district, I know the district is currently exploring kind of a number of facility and maintenance needs right now. So say, for example, if the kitchen flooded tomorrow, or the chiller needs to be replaced, and you need to kind of cover it out of your operating budget, or an example like that, right? Clear Lake is really lucky in that they've got a fantastic Fund 46 balance that you would probably draw on before you utilize Fund 10. You could, but if you did pay for it out of your operating budget, your general fund, we'll just, stick it here, pretend, what did you say the latest quote for that was, Chris? It was,
well, this was a year ago, and it was about $500,000.
okay. It's a one-time expenditure. We carry that forward, but you can see then how that might impact the district's fund balance percentage in this year, but then beyond, right? So it takes away $500,000 from kind of those dollars in reserve, and it gives you a lower starting point for subsequent years. So, pull that back out. So that's kind of why I chose to start with the, I guess, most, I won't even say most likely, kind of what we know based on information right now. And this kind of shows you the 5-year roadmap then. And if the district were to consider a capital or an operating referendum in the future, there's a lot of factors to consider. We're thinking about usually things like, tax impact, fund balance percentage. Those are the ones that typically rise to the top. But we often tell districts, it's when you're ready. Because I know Clear Lake passed an operating referendum, almost 5 years ago now. And so sometimes that impacts the timing of things, but it's really when the district feels ready to approach this not insignificant project.
So one of the things too for the 26-27 budget, we've got, like Elise shared, the assumptions that we have currently built in, but we're currently going through the process right now trying to tighten that up and look closely at what are the one-time expenditures we had this year that won't be there next year. What are some one-time that we have to have next year that aren't there this year? Let's say, do we need let's just say we need new English books next year, or we need new technology for the teachers that's coming due, or a big subscription of one of our things that we do that's coming due. So we're kind of going through the process right now of trying to tighten that stuff down, and IT purchases, and then we'll have hopefully next month. Hopefully, I'll be able to bring health insurance renewal to you. We'll have a decent idea then what that's going to be. If not next month, then in May. So there's still all those a number of those balls in the air, but try to eliminate as many variables as we can going forward. We ultimately don't know what the enrollment's going to be till next fall, but we have a pretty good idea. We've had our JK screening, so we know what our incoming 4K looks like, and so on. So we're in the thick of working on that here in the spring.
So if we do nothing till 2028, the deficits are taken care of by what? The fund balance?
The fund balance. You can see the fund balance getting smaller there.
Okay.
Good question.
Yeah.
Is there a magic number with fund balance where you should start considering referendum? Is that the line you watch?
It's a good question. It is something we pay close attention to. It is considered an indicator of a school district's fiscal health. Mostly, one of the things I'm most focused on as it relates to fund balance is when does it start impacting the district's kind of cash flow and cash flow needs. But yeah, fund balance is definitely one of those things where it ultimately ends up kind of coming back to the board and saying, what are we comfortable with? What's in our policy? Are we practicing what's in our policy? And if not, is there a reason that that's our policy, right? So we have a district who their policy is 25%. But what they realized was that 25% does not even eliminate their need to cash flow borrow, just based on how they're aided. They get a lot of their revenue from local property taxes and almost none from the state. So having a 25% fund balance policy, actually, it was a number that a board 15 years ago had agreed was a good number, but was no longer really appropriate for what that board wanted to accomplish. They said, we don't want to cash flow borrow ever, and so what's the fund balance percentage we need in order to never cash flow borrow? And that was their prerogative. Cash flow borrowing is typical. A quarter of the school districts across the state have a cash flow borrowing of some kind in place. It's really just a timing issue, but that board had that in specific. That's something they wanted to change.
So what's your opinion of where that bar should be for us as far as keeping above the cash flow need?
That's a good question. Even I'd have to dive in a little bit to the times that Clear Lake is shortest on cash. I'm guessing it's probably the month of November, so we'd have to kind of take a look at how close or how long the district has to borrow, those types of things. But I'd say usually when districts are dipping below 10% is when you look to remedy the situation in some way.
Hey, Elise, Is there a metric?
Yeah.
Is there a metric out there that can explain or tell us how financial or how financially fiscally responsible a district is? Is there one number that can tell us that from district to district?
Unfortunately not, because, it's a very legal answer, right? But that metric varies depending on the community. So you may have a community that says, our mill rate, the fact that our mill rate is the lowest in the area is a testament to the fiscal stewardship of the district. That's a misconception. That's not a fact. But it's often pointed to in some communities as a, we've done the most with the lowest impact to taxes. I would disagree with that argument, and I help people try to understand why. It's really the result of the state formula. But you look at things like fund balance percentage, that's one thing. Another thing you look at is, does the district have clean audits? Another thing you look at is, does the district file all of its DPI reports on time? Another thing, does the district claim its federal grants in a timely manner? So those are some things that come to mind when thinking about a district's fiscal responsibility. I can say with certainty that Clear Lake files its DPI reports on time, finishes its audits on time, and currently has fund balance above 15%. So those are all things, those are good green indicators.
Well, I guess what I'm kind of trying to look for a little bit is for the board to have a feel for a number that we could, in our hearts, say, yeah, we're spending $12,337 per student, which rates second best in our group or our group of schools, or CSA. Would that be the number? Is there a number?
We have access to that data, so if you, Chris, I could show an example of the analytics. We don't have to go down the rabbit hole, because then you guys would really be here all night. That's the thing I'm really passionate about.
Oh boy, good one, Greg.
Right?
I'm in favor of that rabbit hole myself, but yeah.
That would be interesting to see.
Offline is fine, yeah.
Well, and part of the reason I asked that question is because, number one, I think we as a board need to be aware where we are setting in our
Area.
And then number two, depending on where we sit in that area, we spend X amount of time trying to figure out how to find money to pay for what we want to do. How much time have we spent trying to figure out, if we didn't get any money, what we're going to need to do? Or what other kinds of resources are out there that can help us cut that $1 million down?
Right.
And is that a conversation that we have with you, or where as a district are we supposed to examine that part of the equation?
Absolutely. So part of our set of tools that we help districts have access to, it's our analytics tool, and it gathers all of that statewide data on a per pupil basis. So how much are we spending per pupil on salaries, benefits, purchase services? Someone mentioned fixed costs at the beginning of tonight. How much of our per pupil spending is going towards some of those things? And then how much of our per pupil spending is going on things like we can't control? So I think about open enrollment. It's not Chris can go knocking on doors, certainly, right? Why are you open enrolling out? Please stay in Clear Lake. Is that the best use of his time? Probably not. But that's a large line item in a lot of school district budgets that just, you can't really impact. The other pieces you're talking about, what can we change? What can we look at in order to kind of hopefully get this to be a smaller number, either in the near term or over time? The analytics can absolutely help on the expenditure side, but we do cite, the broken, school funding formula that puts us here, right? If we're just looking at inflationary increases, we're just looking at 2.6 for salary and 5 for health, some other increases to business insurances, as I mentioned. But if everything else is the same, you know, how is the state not funding us to really just give raises and pay for health insurance? So we kind of look at both, right? Can we reduce expenses? We'll uncover every stone. What do we do on the revenue side then when the majority of our revenue limit when the majority of our funding comes from the revenue limit, this state-driven formula that's predicated on this? So, short answer, I can help you on the expense side. We can definitely examine and analyze expenditures. But then the other piece is looking at the revenues, right? What revenue enhancements we have at our disposal. One of them is referendum. And that's pretty much, that's the most meaningful way to increase the school district's operational revenue.
Do you also have any fingers on like grants or grant information or anything like that, or stats on something like that?
Yeah, something, I don't know, the screen went out. Hang on.
Well, I think it timed out.
I fell asleep. I
We
couldn't.
didn't move the mouse enough.
You're back.
There we go. You see us okay?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, that's a great question. What other revenue sources can we be accessing, or are we not utilizing? So I just pulled up this is an output from the budget model. It helps like put our revenues into separate buckets so that we can just kind of get an idea of how much of our revenue comes from things like grants. Okay, so this line item here, this row 14, is going to be your federal grant revenue. And then below is ESSER. So that grant revenue represents less than 1% of the district's total. 2% of the district's total revenue budget. So it is an important line item and we pay close attention to it. But federal grants are often limited by our student number, our student number and student needs. So, that's an area that changes annually, but in shy of COVID, it's not always been like the biggest source of revenue for school districts. So you see this property tax and state aid. These are driven by the revenue limit, and they represent roughly 80% of the district's operational revenue.
So when you're talking about federal revenue from grants, are those grants that we just get, like we don't write for them, they're not competitive, you're just are those like allocation grants?
Pretty much, we think about things like title. That's usually the largest one in school districts. That's based on your student needs. And yeah, so that's pretty much an allocation. That's a federal allocation.
Yeah, Title 1, 2, 3, and 4.
Titles 2, 4, those are other big ones. Which other ones am I missing, Chris?
Well, 2 is professional development, 3 is English language learning. I mean, that's a drop in, that's a tiny amount of money. 4 is, we get not a ton of money from 4. I mean, Title 1 is the biggest one.
And then the IDEA grant.
IDEA grant is special ed grant, it comes from the federal,
So do K-12 school districts not chase competitive grants? Like, has that not been a thing for them?
That's a good question.
Because in higher ed and employers, they're chasing them big time right now.
Yeah, I think it becomes like a question of time, like cost of time. So an hour of Eve's time to get, maybe a grand or 2 could be worth it. And we always want to say, like I said, that we're uncovering every stone.
But there's nothing on the K-12 side like a DWD grant where you can get up to $250,000 to $300,000.
DWD, they had a grant cycle a couple of years ago. I'm not aware, I haven't heard recently of them renewing. Chris, you might know better. There was one that just came available, revenue for school districts who employ a social worker. I don't know, clearly it's big enough to have a social worker fully on staff, right? Not a lot of K-12s are. Not as many big ones that I'm aware of.
Yeah,
Okay.
well, there's not a lot of, it's the cost benefit analysis of the time you spend and what you get out of it. There are not a lot of lucrative grants for K-12, or they're very niche, like it's,
They're very specific.
so you can have a social worker, or so you can, start a different program. And for a district our size, we typically get not much money, and it feels like not much impact. And it's not helping us with our general big problem of, paying our staff or fuel for the buses. It's just not big enough to make a difference.
Unless we found a rural transportation grant.
Yeah, and
Just saying.
and if there-
We just
if
gotta
there-
be on the lookout, it could come.
and if there was one, we'd all be chasing it. Every other district would be
Except
chasing it.
we employ our own, unlike other people who use
Yeah,
service.
it's still quite a few that do.
I'm an optimist on this one.
Yeah.
With this,
I love that. I love that. That's fantastic. You do, because you really, the response commonly is, what has the district done before coming to the local community for a handout? That is what
I think you have to, kind of what Greg was saying, like showing what we're doing per pupil, but it's also, we've done our homework and exhausted all our options before we're coming to you for money.
Absolutely.
And I think showing how we have reduced over the years gradually through attrition as our, student population's gone down, or how we have reduced staff. We have a history to show there too.
Yeah.
Mhm. So with that in mind, we just kind of, when we're thinking about looking into the future, I just showed a few things that could impact the future forecast for the better, and a few things that it can impact it for the worse, right? So the things that we kind of have our eye on is when districts can go, should they choose to. So, based on the district's kind of projected fund balance for next year, I would say you're probably good to skip this fall, right? If the district were to go in April of 27, all right, so a year from now, you could have revenue for the 27-28 school year. The district could also go in fall of 28. No, that would be for the 28-29 school year.
Spring of 28 again.
Really, it's just next April then for the 27-28 school year. You can also go in February. It's just not as common. And then in 28-29, the opportunity to go would be in April and November. So that's a whole nother biennial budget away. That's another 3 fiscal years away, but believe me when I say it, it comes up quicker than you sometimes expect. So that's why we wanted to have a conversation tonight, or to demonstrate that this is a potential for the next 5 years. As soon as there's new numbers, new information, budget repair bill, we can all hope, then we put it in the forecast, and now the numbers look different. So that's the power of using the tool, is that the forecast is as up to date as when we change based on the newest information.
So is there a way that we can get the forecast, when we start having budget, that we can see the forecast too?
Mhm.
I think that would be helpful
Yeah.
in our conversation, especially since we really want to be watching a few of those line items.
At least what else do you think it's important for us to learn tonight?
I think one of the pieces that sometimes we see missed in districts, 2.63 is that's the max, right? That's the highest collective bargaining rate. Districts don't have to give 2.63. In the years when it was 8 and 4, we saw districts getting really creative with how they were providing those recurring and really like that's what sneaks up on you on the expense side year after year after year because it builds into the base. Similarly, health insurance seems to be starting to make up a larger part of a school district's operating budget. Just the costs are getting really out of hand, and historically schools have offered really great insurance. So sometimes taking a closer look at what the district is providing compared to even, other local school districts, but also other local businesses. Just as an idea.
Okay.
Anything else?
Any questions for Eve before or for Elise before we let her go?
I think
Elise,
we've reached our limit.
Thank you for joining us.
Thank you all for having you.
And
Yeah,
thank you for
Elise.
being a part of our team.
Yeah, Elise is a great partner for us, and thank you, Elise, for being with us tonight. We appreciate it very much. Great job. Thank you. We'll be in touch.
Yep. Sounds good. Thanks, everybody. Have a good rest of your night.
Yep, thank you.
I feel like you should clap for her.
All right, is there anything else, Chris, you want to say before we move on?
No, I don't think so.
Okay.
I've got to get back to my screen here now.
All right, then while you're doing that, I'm going to move
There
us
we go.
on to our next item of business, which is the update on HVAC controls at the elementary school.
Okay, no, nothing to approve, nothing substantive here, just more of a narrative of, so the last time we talked about taking a step back, slowing down a little bit from some advice from our friends at Krause Anderson, assisting us a little bit there, and we did bring in the folks from Hallberg Engineering, and they've been on site a couple times so far. First visit was just like getting to know the basics, looking at the physical equipment. Second one got delayed a little bit last week with so they didn't come in until Friday. So I actually haven't talked to them about what exactly they did on Friday, but they anticipate coming here like 4 times, putting together information and a proposal for what they think is the best thing to do going forward. So that's just wanted to give just a quick update on what's going on since the last meeting.
Okay. The next item of business is the update on past agenda items, incident response software, and high school gym lighting.
Yeah, same thing there. I just, was looking back at last month and just some questions that we had or whatever. So we, approved the E3. We purchased the E3 app for incident response and safety, and so that's in the process of being implemented and getting connected and integrating with our student information system. We actually have initial training tomorrow for the admin leaders. With the app tomorrow, like an hour-long training, and then the tentative plan is on April 2nd. In-service will be of training for the full staffs on and using it. So, and then the high school gym lighting, just went back and verified with Munson Electric about the specific, not just the fixtures, but the bulbs and the lumens and everything like that. And I know they had come in and used a tester and tested our current lighting levels, and then tested. Or then have the rating for the new bulbs. They talked to the supplier. I know Tom and I know Dale Rosine talked to Munson's about just, their electrical supply company said, yes, we have used these bulbs in gymnasiums before because, we wanted to make sure they're appropriate. They're not too dim, not too bright, not too yellow, not too white. You don't want your volleyball players looking up in the air and getting blinded every play or having it not bright enough, things like that. So, felt like we had adequate assurance from the supplier, so that was good. So I think we might still be on track to maybe get that work done during spring break. Not 100% sure. So just wanted to update on that too.
Perfect. Any questions for Chris, you guys? All right, then we're going to move on to the next item of business, which is consideration/approval of additional elementary paraprofessional staff. And I think, Chris, did you want to save part of this for closed session, or is this open session?
If the board has any questions about details, it's either way. It's not necessary, but if people have more in-depth questions, we could do that. We have staffing as part of our.
All right, let's do our discussion around it, and then let's do our action after closed session.
That's good.
So go ahead, Chris.
Okay. So we just coming into the school year, we thought we'd had some reductions in our number of students. We have a large number of students with high needs, particularly in our elementary school, and we had some departures, some kids who moved, some kids who open enrolled, some kids who homeschooled, and we were anticipating some reductions in our needs for paraprofessionals, a lot of kids with one-on-one aides, the elementary. Then we had a number of students move into the district, move physically in July and August with IEPs. And then of those, 3 of them came in with IEPs, reading with full-time adult support, one-on-one aides. So basically we were able to cover those needs with the departures that we had and kind of maintaining the staff that we had last year. As we've kind of gotten into the second semester here now, we've had some students return to us. We've had some students that were open enrolled or homeschooled, maybe returning to school. We've had some other students who had come to us or had been on maybe partial day schedules, are being successful and increasing the length of their day. And when they are here, they have full-time support. So we're seeing, students increasing their day, and that's adding, partial time here, partial time there. So that's what's bringing this discussion forward. So that's basically what the request is. And if we break it all down, it ends up being the equivalent of 3 FTEs. Now, I would say that if that gets approved, we're not going to go out and do that tomorrow, but we have some upcoming IEP meetings where it is heavily anticipated that we're going to be increasing those days. So these won't all happen at one time. So we would add as we need to, but we're anticipating it would be up to that level. But we're not going to go add that until we have to, if you know what I mean. So the request would be for up to 3 FTEs, and this would be to help us, with all the one-on-one needs that we have to function for the remainder of the year, based on what's in the kids' IEPs in their plans. So that's the general overview. So.
Is there monies that are provided to us when we need a paraprofessional for a student with an IEP, Chris?
Well, so as we increase some of those costs, we do, a lot of them are reimbursable through why am I having a mental block on the high costs? No, not high costs that we just applied for, but what's the name of the grant? I can't think of. I'm just having a mental block on the name of the revenue source. But anyway, special ed money. But it kind of comes next year, so it's kind of like looking back. So for the last couple of years, I've applied for transfer service money. So that's looking back at kids that moved into your district that you weren't anticipating, that came in already with services on their records that you were legally obligated to provide. So you look back and you're able to apply and you get some money reimbursement for that. It's not a full reimbursement dollar for dollar, but it's a partial. Same thing with high cost special ed aid. We've applied for that this year for the first time since I don't know when, if it's ever been. Similar for these kind of things. You got students with high costs associated with them. They have a one-to-one para, or they have transportation associated. And again, it's you accumulate all the expenses, we tally up all the expenses, and then it gets reimbursed at about a 20% rate. So there's money that follows the students, but it doesn't always keep up with what the needs are. And as we talked about with the Elise there, so the special ed reimbursement rate has been from the state has been in the low 30%. This budget, they said they committed to 42%, while the first projections that came out this fall or late fall had it paying more like in 35 to 38%, because they just there's higher needs around the state, and so they didn't allocate enough money. So that's part of that budget repair bill they're talking about there, is how can we get us up to that 42% guarantee. If we do, that'll help Clear Lake, certainly, because that's that much less money we need to transfer from Fund 10 into the Special Ed Fund 27. So yeah, that's a good question. So there's some money that follows the students, but it doesn't ever seem to be the full one-to-one cost.
So now we kind of know what it's going to cost our budget when we take a look at this. The next question that I have is, our special ed department seems to be attracting students from other districts? Is that accurate or no?
I mean, it's more people moving into the district because as we do in January, you know, our staffing level, or I'm sorry, our caseloads are incredibly high, and so we have closed our open enrollment in for students with IEPs at the elementary level and at the middle school level for next year, and currently for the elementary level. So it's not open enrollment in because we would not, unfortunately, we wouldn't be able to accept those students. But it's also, it's move-ins, and it's kids who reside, you know, it's families who reside in our district.
So by putting some more positions in the building, that's going to help the building work better for the people that we've got working there already.
Well, that's the hope. That's the you know, it's providing support for kids with high needs who need that adult support throughout the day to learn or to function socially, to navigate their day. Who need that one-to-one adult support as written in their IEP.
And that level of support is required, right? Correct?
If it's written into their IEP,
Right.
it is. Yeah, yeah.
So-
It's a legal document
Whether
in the IEP.
we have to approve this, right?
I would say so. I would say so.
Well, 'cause they're in our district and it is required, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And, you know, obviously, things we can control, things we can't control. We don't want to provide a one-to-one aid to a student who doesn't actually need it. Because number one, most importantly, it's not good for the student, right? Because to foster independence, we don't want to do that. And then also, you know, fiscally, it's more money to have aides, but it comes down to what is the need of the child, and that's really what we have to do. And yet, we don't really have much of a choice in the matter. So, but we always are trying to be very judicious about adding people. I don't think anyone feels good about saying we're going to add 3 more, you know, paras to the building. We have, you know, it's a large group as is. Nothing again, you know, that mean they're great people who are we need, but it's not like we feel good about saying we want to add more. But it's just kind of a requirement.
Yeah. I guess if you guys are open to go ahead and approve it now, I'll entertain a motion.
I make a motion to approve the additional paraprofessional staff.
I second it.
It's been properly moved and second to approve the additional elementary paraprofessional staff. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes. The next item of business is the 26-27 CISA 11 shared services contract.
Okay, so with all of you having served on the board here for a while, you're familiar with this. This is an annual update that we have, and you can see, mine's opening really slowly. There we go. Renewing most of what we've done. We cut a few things last year. We really did a deep dive last year into our usage and cut a few consortiums that we belonged to. We looked at it real close again this year and had some good conversations within the district about that, and came up with what we have. And we have our number of consulting days. We're keeping at 6, which is what we did this year as well. Had a good conversation with our principals about that. They're feeling comfortable with that. If we get to a point in the year where we say, gosh, we just need one more day, we can buy another day. You know, this doesn't mean we're limited to 6, but we don't want to overbuy now. We want to, you know, kind of be cautious or judicious and then buy more if we need to. But we bought 6 this year, and I think we've stuck to that. We haven't had to buy any extras, I don't believe, right? I'm looking at you guys. No, we haven't bought any extras. And then some of the other groups.
What's the science, math, and technology resource center?
Yeah. So that's one of the things we use a lot. So
Okay.
we have, so you can check out, for example, and this is just one example. You can check out like kits for, let's say, physics in an elementary classroom. You can check out a science kit to do an active lesson. It's access to professional development. So if you're part of the SciMatech, when they have a workshop for math or science, let's say, you might send your teacher there for $50, and if you're not part of consortium, you're going to pay $250. So that was one that was easily, we looked at, we've made use of that one quite a bit.
Chris, is that the one that Mrs. Krusek and Mr. Crawford take advantage of too with the?
No, that's the next, yeah, that's on the next page. Yeah, good question. Anything on that front page else? And a lot of them, like audiology services, for example, that's if we have a student that needs it. If we don't pay anything.
Okay.
So, Special Ed Instructional Media Center, that's another one too that we use a lot. We check a lot of resources out from that resource. Supporting Students with Disabilities Network, again, that's a consortium network of, like Mrs. Powers will go to monthly meetings with the special ed directors, offers us options for professional development for a lot cheaper. Like we'll send our paraprofessionals to a thing in August, and it's part of the SSDN network, and we get a very discounted rate for that. There was one that, for example, last year we dropped out of one, the Healthy, Safe, and Respectful Schools. We can still send people to it. We just pay more per person, but we did the math, and we weren't attending that many things, so it was we could spend less than $2,800 and still go to things without being a part of the consortium. So, one Mr. Melberg just asked about under technology services. So we've got the distance education coordination for $4,500. That used to be about $11,000 or $9,000. So what CISA is doing differently is they've had the Northern Lights Network, it was referred to. This goes back to the late 90s, early 2000s. And I mean, just in the time I've been here, it's changed from being on TVs and this kind of closed network that was heavily run by CISA to now with the, just the ease of, Teams and Zoom and so on, just the way so many kids are doing so much more distance stuff. What they are doing is stripping back simply to the dual credit options that they coordinate, because they do coordinate a lot of dual credit courses over the distance education, and that's what everyone's gravitating to. And they're seeing less and less participation in, for example, let's say you've got a Spanish teacher in your district and they broadcast out to other districts. CISA used to be sort of like this clearinghouse. So everyone had here's the classes we're offering, and everyone could look at it and say, well, here's what we're looking for, and we've matched up with that. So an example is Mr. Crawford's AP US History class. So that's not going to be clearinghouse through CISA 11 anymore. But what we'll still do is we'll still be able to partner with the schools we've been partnering with to offer that. And so you're going to see districts, I think, just more doing one-to-one agreements with each other, which I think is fine, and will be okay. It just, I think over time, you're gonna kind of lose that one repository where you could go and say, what's everybody offering? What are the possibilities around CISA 11? And you're not going to have quite so much of that. You're going to have more people emailing out, everyone saying, hey, does anyone have a AP physics class, or does anyone have a greenhouse class that they're offering on distance learning? So it's going to be more, everyone's kind of a little bit on their own, but they just found that there were so few districts participating in that side of it. Everyone's gravitating to the dual credit, so they stripped that back, so they did cut the cost in half too. And then the other one was what Mr. Melberg was asking about, the interactive special events. So we go to open heart surgeries and
so that wasn't face-to-face.
Holocaust survivor. So yeah, not face-to-face. Yeah.
The way it was described, it sounded face-to-face.
Yeah, so we usually travel up there, and then you're in a room, and it's interactive in the room, but it is live. So it's pretty interesting. I know some of my kids have gone.
It was a very graphic
experience, maybe for those. You can bring in live guest speakers into your classroom, and so we looked at that. We do make use of that, and we would lose access to that stuff if we didn't buy this. So we felt it was worth it. So, any other questions? I did attach, just for your reference, like historical data. The second document there, not that we need to get in, but it's for your reference. Yeah, but our costs are actually going down. Our shared services costs, gotten a little bit less. Oh, it's the same document.
It's the same document. I already tried to look.
Sorry about that. I will fix that.
It's okay. you answered all my questions.
All right, if there's no more, I will entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the 2026-2027 CIS-11 shared service contract.
It's been
Second?
properly moved and seconded to approve the 26-27 CIS-11 shared service contract. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed. Motion passes. The next item of business is the approval of Start College Now and Early College Credit applications.
I'll let Mr. Melberg give any comments here, but also this is just again, we're approving that we will accept these college courses for high school graduation. So, I don't know.
So what's on, these are the applications for next fall. You'll see if you remember from the last couple of years, we do this twice a year. We've got a lot more applications for next fall than what we are used to. But part of that is Mrs. Elwood and I are encouraging kids to put as many on there as possible. That doesn't mean they can't fit all of these into their schedule, and also we cap. They get 18 credits, 18 college credits. We cap it at that over 2 years. But we want kids to have options, because the way this process, the timeline of this lays out, I have to come right now and ask for your approval, and then later on we have to sign up for classes. And sometimes we get into spots with kids where the classes that were approved, all of a sudden it's not being offered, they can't get into it. It's been all kinds of things that happen between now and when they actually sign up for the classes later on. And so we just encourage kids, if you're interested at all, put the classes down and apply for them. That doesn't mean that one, you're going to take them all, well, one, you're not going to be able to take them all, but at least it gives you all the options, or gives you more options when it comes time to sign up for classes. So that's why you see an increase there. But the early college credit, that is through the 4-year university system, and then the Start College Now is through the technical schools. And then the RIT, where it says ITV, a number of years ago, 4 years ago, because of needing Mrs. Hughes in a number of different places in the low numbers, we were getting an AP Lit. We went with, through UW Eau Claire, Barron County, this RIT 101. So basically this class has become our replacement for kids that wanted to take AP Lit. So it's not an AP class, but at the same time, it's not a high stakes test at the end to see if they get college credit or not. By taking this and passing it, they get the college credit. So basically what I'm asking of you tonight, as Chris said, is to approve courses on here to allow us to accept them as high school credit. And then Mrs. Elwood and I will work with these kids to, one, get them signed up, but two, also we have things in place of what we will pay for and what we will not pay for when it comes to college courses. So anything that we are paying for, we'll make sure it meets all of our criteria.
And you noted that's a large number of requests, and I think it reflects the large size of our senior class, because a lot of these are senior dominated. It's juniors as well, but senior dominated. It's a large senior class, and it's a rather ambitious senior class. We've got a lot of kids who showed a lot of interest in taking part this year.
Yeah.
So.
And one thing we've done the last couple of years with schedules, especially going into their junior year, is encouraging kids to take care of business their junior year to get as many of our requirements taken care of, which doesn't give them much room their junior year for a Start College Now or early college credit. But what it does is it opens up their schedule their senior year to have all kinds of options. So that's why you're seeing a large uptick in our large incoming senior class, who has the space in their schedule to get some of these courses in and give them a huge advantage for life after high school.
Does Mrs. Elwood also talk to them about like what program they want to go into and like how does this fit in? Because like one of the things we realize is that if you load up on generals and you want to do study abroad, you could end up in a situation where not a lot counts. So like, what are your future plans in alignment with like really being strategic on what you're taking now to fit your big picture?
I think it's a combination of, we have kids, we have all these conversations, but it's, okay, what are your future plans and what courses should you take? Or number two, should it be, we know we're going to UW River Falls and we want to get some of our generals taken care of. Or with some kids, it's, I'm not sure, and I'm trying to explore. And so we try to find areas of interest, and now instead of exploring on their dime as a freshman in college, they're exploring more on our dime.
Yep.
Pretty easy motion to fish for.
Yeah. I move to approve the Start College Now and Early College credit applications.
I'll second.
It's been properly moved and second to approve the Start College Now and Early College credit applications. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes. The next item of business is consideration/approval of school perception surveys for students, staffs, and parents.
Okay. So we've done the surveys now for the last 2 springs, and that grew out of our strategic planning process and our desire for some of that data to be in our scorecards and start for the first time kind of measuring how our parents and our staff and our students are feeling in a real specific, consistent way. So met back in mid-February with Rob, who you've met before here when he's come to present to us. Rob Demise from School Perceptions to talk about planning for here in the spring of 26. If we are approved to do this, the plan would be mid to late April that they would go out. So there's a full proposal there, and much like in the past, so it's our option of what we would like to do. So I guess I'm looking for a little help from the board as far as maintaining a balance of making sure that we stay consistent, but also being cost effective. So in discussions with Rob and then and as an admin team, we talked about it before coming to the meeting here too. It kind of feels like the staff survey annually is probably the base, like kind of one of the more important things. That's what Rob would say. He's seeing most districts, once you start doing that, you kind of want to stick with that. People sort of come to expect it. That was one suggestion, is to kind of prioritize that. And then if you remember last year with parents, we had opted not to do it last year, and what Rob had mentioned is a lot of districts do parents like every other year or every third year, because he said, if you enact a new strategy in your district, those numbers move like so incrementally small. So, if you measure it every year, you're really not going to see much change, but you measure it every second year, every third year, you're going to see a bigger change. Probably said, probably a good idea to maybe swing back to that. Obviously, the parent one's a little bit more because it's more people. And then the students, again, cost the same as doing the staff. That's all internal. We've done the students each of the last 2 years. One thought we had there, one thing for the board to consider, I want to throw it out there, is if we want to have kind of a rotation where we aren't paying for all 3 every year, we just got done talking about the budget. So it's not a huge line item on our big budget, but still, we talked about, well, boy, it's pretty tough to skip the students because we've got some key questions on our strategic planning scorecards that we really want to get every year. Another approach we could take is, rather than doing the full in-depth student survey, we could do our own survey.
Pull out those.
With those key questions. There's about 3 to 5 key questions that are marked or that are monitored in those scorecards, and we could do our own. Use Google to survey our students, or specifically, especially the 7 to 12 students. So that was one thought we had for the board to consider. That way, we're still tapping into those key questions. We're not going to have the big, deep breakdown as much, but we could cut a little bit of we save a little bit of cost that way. So I just want to throw that out there for the board to think over.
I see quite a bit of value in school perceptions, the way that they perceive it, obviously, and are able to compare it to other schools and their database, and I don't know, I feel it's worth it when we do it. But
I think it's worth it, but like everywhere I've ever worked, staff is about every 2 years or every 3 years. So I think if you did staff, students, parents, or you put it on some sort of a rotation, would probably be the best. But I like the idea of, with the students, figuring out how do you continue to ask those key questions. Not even challenge getting outside of a Google survey and using a Survey Monkey or something where you have a little more anonymity, because Google's going to track who they are. Whether or not you put it on there, it's probably going to track it. And so that affects your answers.
so much as a Survey Monkey.
Well, sometimes you can get it for free depending on how many.
You know, the cost of these things, if we were to have a staff member work on it for a few days, it's not gonna be much cheaper than this anyway, so I'm kinda in favor of doing what we
Way to
need
look
to
at
do
it,
to
yeah.
get the stuff out of it.
Okay.
I'm good.
Okay.
All right.
So we'll just say, I'm hearing just do them all.
Do them as you need to do them, I think.
Okay.
You know, if you think we can skip the students or something, I mean, if you
Well-
think we can skip.
I guess I'm looking to put the decision on you guys a little bit. We're not sure what we want
Well,
to do, so
but I think
we're.
once
We
you
don't
have a
get paid to make decisions.
But do we save parents till we get a little potentially closer to a referendum
That's what I was wondering.
and do the staff and students now? Because we might have some referendum questions we might want to put on it if we get a little bit closer
I agree.
after we hear some budget things.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up because that was the next thing I was going to bring up was Rob's suggestion was to do the parents because he said that what they would do if we're going to consider referendum in the future, he said you want to time that you know if we, assuming we would want to do a community survey before a referendum, which a lot of people would say is a really smart idea to do. You want to do that within 6 months of the actual. If you figure out you're doing a referendum, you go 6 months and no more than that. If you go earlier than 6 months, he said the data gets all of a sudden it's not good. Things change between if you get too far out. One of the things he said, he strongly suggested. If we did the parent one, he said there's a couple of questions. They're not necessarily referendum specific questions, but they're kind of like precursors, leading questions to kind of get people to start thinking about like their thoughts on funding and programs and school. And he said, I think it would be really smart to kind of get an initial kind of dipstick on those now, because that's going to help inform the future with that. Because he said, if you don't have parents and staff kind of thinking of a supportive idea of that he goes, it's going nowhere. So his suggestion was to do the parent one and include some of that in there.
Didn't we hear in the referendum workshops too that you would want to do more of the community also in a survey type
Yeah.
thing, not just parents?
So he's saying if you actually are if the board someday says we're doing a referendum, then what you want to do is you want to go 6 months back from that, no more, and then do a survey of the community, the whole community, including usually written for senior citizens who aren't going to go online and do a survey. But he said as a precursor to that, he's saying I would start asking some kind of leading questions of parents and staff now to kind of see how people view things. So sorry, I'm glad you clarified that or asked that.
It can help us frame our story
Yeah,
moving forward.
understanding where people are
Like
at.
what programs do they want, what things, at least we can say
Right,
we've
that was
addressed
a big
these
part of the
things.
community was where are they willing to spend money?
Control the narrative.
Yeah.
All right, we'll, so what are we at, Chris?
Now where do we go?
Okay, I mean,
Are
All right,
we
you-
at doing all of them then?
are we at doing
I
them
think
all?
we need to do staff for sure, students, and if we think we need to do parents because of referendum.
I think we should.
Do them all.
Do them all.
Okay.
We're gonna kick this can down the road for another year.
I'll entertain a
To
motion.
decide which one gets to go again.
I move to approve doing the school perceptions for all 3 areas, staff, students, and parents.
A second.
Been properly moved and seconded to approve the school perception surveys for students, staff, and parents. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes. The next item of business is discussion of CISA 11 Joint Board Superintendent Spring Meeting, April 1st.
So we've had all or most of the board attend these last few years. This one's April 1st. It's a Wednesday evening, which may be good, may be bad for people's schedules. There's a flyer attached. The gentleman coming, I have never heard him, but some folks at CISA have. They say he's very energetic, talking about AI, and his message is about how AI is not going to replace good teaching, it enhances good teaching. So that's kind of his driving message. So we've been to it before, but there's a little registration. You go have a little dinner and then listen to a speaker for about 45 minutes. So nobody has to decide tonight, but I'll follow up with an email after to see who might be interested in going. We can carpool, or I think last year a lot of us ended up driving our own just to get home quicker or whatever, but throw it out there to the board.
Yeah,
I mean,
I'm in.
if it works.
I'd like to be too.
It's a nice-
See how it plays out.
It's a nice thing.
I don't think you have to send an email. I think we all just.
Are you all saying you're in? Okay.
We all said yes.
Okay. I'll send out emails asking if anyone wants to ride in a school van up there, maybe.
Yeah, there you go.
Okay. All right, great. Thank
All
you.
right. Next I have business then, discussion of election canvass committee timeline.
Yeah, just a reminder, we've got a board election coming up here, April 7th, and just the timeline that goes with that. We'll have the canvas committee meeting either on April 9th or 10th. The board members take their oath on the following Monday at the board meeting that we have. Officially take office on the 27th, and then the board reorganization is on May 11th. And so for the canvassing committee, kind of covering two items in one here, it's two electors, meaning two people who reside in the district, plus the board clerk. And since Nettie is not up for election, she would participate. If she was in the election, we'd have another board member. So I don't know, Nettie, if we can talk outside, but 9th or 10th, whichever one
Yep.
might look better for your calendar. It's a Thursday or a Friday. We usually try to do it just kind of right at the end of the school day.
Either of them, whatever works for you guys.
Okay. Okay.
Okay, next I have business then, our superintendent notes, Chris Peterson.
Okay, it's been a good busy time. Lots of good stuff going on. I just remind people to follow us on social media. With I do feel like we've had a little bit of juice put into that here in the last 6 months with our new platform that we have through Aptigee, which allows us to push things out on our live feed on our website. It mirrors what's on Facebook, which generally mirrors what's on Instagram. Instagram just doesn't play well with others sometimes. So sometimes Instagram's a little wonky with what you put out. It's
designed for teenagers.
yeah,
It
it's
doesn't
the
play
square
well.
picture, and it's just not very text friendly sometimes. So, but it's been a nice. I think it's been good. But just remind people to follow us out there to see all the cool things happening in the district. We just try to push out all the positive things that are happening. I mentioned last month that we have a new Dunn St. Croix commissioner after Mike Dwyer is retiring. So it's Pat Gretzlock. He's going to be the new commissioner for the Dunn St. Croix. Mr. Rosine was on the selection committee. That was a really great group that worked on that. Pat Gretzlock is currently he happens to be the high school principal in Boyceville. So, but he was selected among a group of real good candidates. We had parent-teacher conferences in February in both buildings. We'll probably bring some numbers next month on that. Elementary had some activities with Read Across America Week last week. They had a cool science and literacy night that was part of that. Brought in the Star Lab, for lack of a better term, whatever the real name of it is.
now.
But brought that in, and that was a big hit, I think. They also took a group of students up to Turtle Lake to partner with Turtle Lake School District and listen to Tasha Shu give an inspirational talk about leadership and being brave for elementary kids. Girls basketball season came to an end. Wrestling came to an end with one student with Magna Mago making it to the state individual tournament. Our hockey co-op with Amory, we got Jarek Manning and Connor Schroyer playing on that team. They made it to the state championship game for the second year in a row. Got second place for the second time in a row. Boys basketball still going. They won the regional championship Saturday night, so some nice excitement there. The Thursday game against Chippewa Falls McDonald will be at Amory, so that's pretty cool to have it right in our backyard like that. A lot of creates a little fun, excitement, and buzz in the building during the week here before spring break. Track practice started today. Softball, baseball, the next couple of weeks will get started. We had the National Honor Society induction last week. It was, according to records, it was the 60th time that they've done it. Visual Arts Classic had success a few weeks ago. Multiple members, the majority of the team, made it to the state competition. Our drama club has been resurrected, as we've talked about, and their performance will be March 27th, 28th, and 29th. 4 performances over those 3 days. They're putting on the play Hurry Up and Wait. That'll be at the community center, so it'd be nice to talk that up and get some people out there to see those kids have been working on that. Forensics had its first competition about 3 weeks ago as well. They're getting going on their season. Tomorrow night, band and choir have their large group contest for the high school. Junior high had theirs already. We've got solo and ensemble coming at the end of March. FFA, Parley Pro team made it to state, got first place for first time in a few years. Lydia Burr made it into an individual event. So those are just a bunch of cool activities going on in the district to be proud of. Our kids being successful and getting involved. There's a cool little odd thing to share, a little win. So Bo Osmondrud, our IT director, talked to me today, and he said we do a thing where we go and we do like intentional phishing of our staff. We send them emails to see, like kind of who clicks on it or whatever, and 0 clicks. So we sent a nice congratulatory email out to the staff saying, "Good job, everybody." So
You're way ahead of the curve.
He obviously didn't send them to the board.
So that's been a push for the staff, is that safety and wariness. And they say the best defense is an aware staff, who's has a little hesitation and asks questions before they just start clicking on things. So that was awesome. We have a food service administrator review in early April, first one in 5 years. We're actually working on that now, building the data. It's like an audit of your food service department, not a financial audit necessarily, but an audit of operations and safety and everything, and nutrition. So, and we mentioned that we applied for high-cost special ed aid, and the first time for quite a while. And last but not least, spring break is next week, and I think everyone's looking forward to that. Students and adults alike. It's coming at a nice time. I think everyone's ready for a nice break. So that's all I got.
Nice.
That's plenty.
Thanks, Chris. Our next item of business is contemplated closed session pursuant to Wisconsin statutes 19.85, paragraph 1C, 19.85, paragraph 1E, 1F. The board will discuss the district administrator's evaluation, discussing staffing levels, deliberate over district business which relates to competitive bargaining, and consider personal injuries or disciplinary data of specific students. I'll pull the board. Nadine?
Yes.
Corey? Yes.
Christie?
Yep.
Matthew?
Yes.
Myself, yes, we are in closed session. All right, we're back in open session. Future agenda items. Anybody have anything that they want to? What are we talking about that you were? Oh, ETS. If you want to throw that on again, Chris.
Yeah,
we'll
that'll
talk
be
about that next time.
Next month, May.
Anything else? All right, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
I move to adjourn.
I'll second.
It's been properly moved and seconded that we adjourn. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed. Motion passes. We are adjourned.